Welcome to the latest Watercolors Aquarium Gallery video brought to you from the Aquarium Rush Studios in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're going to do things a little differently today. Rather than talking about some of the cool stuff we have, we're going to talk about one of the most common phone calls we get.
Yeah, way common these days. I think in the last week, probably at least 5 calls looking for this thing that we don't carry and don't really have that much of a desire to carry.
Right. We're talking about pet turtles today.
Yeah.
And why you should or should not get a pet turtle.
Yeah. I'm going to preface this by saying that I think most people who ask about turtles don't actually want a turtle. And I think it results in a lot of turtles ending up in a situation they shouldn't be in.
Right.
Like a pond outside.
Yeah, after they've been inside for 2 or 3 years.
Red-eared sliders are considered one of the most invasive species on the planet. They're commonly talked about in scientific circles because they're the quintessential example of someone takes it in and then says, oh, it's getting too big for me, I'll just let it go.
Yeah.
That's bad.
And you've probably seen a red-eared slider outside somewhere, so you think, oh, well, they're native, they can go here, they're just everywhere. And that's by far the most common pet turtle. That's the only turtle that both big box stores carry. One of them carries the African side neck, which is a bit of a smaller turtle, but still gets about 8 inches long. That's a little bit more doable, but still a big animal to keep.
And that's something that I think people don't keep in mind is that these, while they're out of the water, they're not particularly active, but when they're in the water, they're very active.
Oh, yeah.
And so an animal that has an 8-inch shell on the small side for this group, they need a lot of space. So putting them
talking 200 gallons or so.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're really going to treat them well. But most people aren't even giving them 75s. From what I've talked to, most people are looking at 40-gallon tanks.
Yeah, and that's barely room to turn around.
Yeah, and they're calling us for a small turtle, which is a baby turtle.
By the way, are illegal to sell on the federal level. You cannot sell a turtle with smaller than a 4-inch carapace.
And I think a big reason for that is some of the conditions that turtles like that are bred in and sold in mass.
Yeah, they're the reptile equivalent of a puppy mill. It's atrocious conditions.
Right.
Yeah. But let's talk about care. Let's talk about the red-eared slider, because I think that's probably one of the only turtles I've ever seen as a pet in somebody's home, unless somebody is a turtle specialist or a reptile specialist, and they've gone for something a little bit more exotic.
Right. Yeah.
12 inches is how big a red-eared slider will get. It will live up to 20 years, so getting it for your 10-year-old means that when he goes to college, you're going to be caring for it the entire time. And probably a few years after that too. And maybe forever.
Yeah, and I think another thing to keep in mind is turtles are not like cuddly pets.
No.
They do not like to be touched because, think about it, they're a type of animal that in the wild, if something's touching them, it's trying to eat them.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't have that same type of like a bird or something where they're there's a mechanism for them to say, oh, this is affection.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you've got to be incredibly cautious handling a turtle because they are a reptile, so their waste does contain salmonella. And if they're making waste in your tank, then you have salmonella in your tank. So if you're going to handle a turtle, you have to be meticulous about making sure the turtle's completely clean and making sure you completely clean your hands afterwards. And for children, which are who I think most often turtles are being bought for, yeah, you're really going to trust that every time he's going to disinfect his hands perfectly. Maybe not.
And she's an adult, and it happened while she was an adult, but I do have a friend who ended up in the hospital because she's a turtle keeper for salmonella poisoning. So I'm not saying it's something that happens all the time. I'm saying it's something that happens.
Yeah, it's a genuine concern with something like that.
Yeah. Diet-wise, they are not carnivores. I cannot tell you how many turtles I've seen with deformed shells because of an improper diet. They are an omnivore, and they do need that veggie in their diet. So a base, good pellet food with some treats that are like leafy greens or insects or, I don't know, a piece of salmon. Like those are
Yeah.
treats, not the basis of the diet.
Not a base diet. Yep. Yep. So what we're saying here is, if you are willing to get an aquarium or enclosure that is at least 5 feet by 2 feet,
Yeah.
if you are willing to make sure that you wash your hands meticulously whenever you handle the turtle,
Or really, for the best, don't handle it. Turtle's not
handle
gonna
the
like it anyway.
right? And if you're willing to provide that kind of diet, then you can have a turtle as a pet. If
Oh.
you
UV lights,
UV lights,
UV lights,
Basking lights.
yep,
And-
absolute must.
frequent large water
Oh.
changes.
One of the
They are
messiest
so
things.
messy.
I mean, an 8-inch fish. Think about how messy that is. But
Right.
we're not throwing random veggies and stuff as often in that type of tank. The type of variety that a turtle needs just begs for water quality issues.
It's a distinct smell that
Yeah.
I could pick out anywhere.
It feels like all the hardest parts of keeping aquariums and all the hardest parts of keeping reptiles combined together. So they are a true specialty.
Yeah. There we go. I think that we kind of just summed it up right there.
Yeah.
Can a turtle be kept as a pet? Sure.
Sure.
They're actually relatively easy to take care of if you provide enough space and the things that we just talked about there today. They're not a for everybody pet.
No.
There are companies out there that sell 40-gallon and 20-gallon turtle tanks.
Yeah.
Those should be called turtle incubators.
Yeah.
Those are not appropriate long-term turtle housing.
Yeah. And it's like, if it's gonna live 20 years, that's gonna be good for maybe the first or second year of that time.
Yeah.
So already be planning your upgrade as soon as you buy it.
And anticipate that you're going to be building a lot of equipment yourself, because let me tell you, commercially available turtle docks are not large enough for anything more than like a year or
Right.
two old.
No,
Right.
they're not. That's a great point.
So
So there we go. We're trying to keep it fun. We're trying to keep it fun by keeping it responsible.
Yeah.
I just like that.
And they usually go hand in hand.
They do. Yep. Let's keep those hands wet.
Ready as a letter.